Well, I do think that's really big for this team. I think just across the board for our football program, depth is something that we've worked really hard to get to. And, I think you saw that show a little bit defensively last year where you had some guys went down and some guys were able to step in and help us. And, I think getting to that point offensively is certainly the next priority. And, that wide receiver position now where you've got competition and guys like Skates and Shaw and, Tariq Milton out going from that guy that was the 40-play guy to the guy going to 60-play guy. And obviously DeShante and, where does Landon Akers go? And so for us, I think we're in a really unique set right now. And where are we really? I think we'll know a lot more by the time we get through fall camp, but we feel really comfortable with where we're at as a football program in general going into fall camp. Same situation, but again, both those grad transfers, until they get on the campus, you can't say a whole lot about them. But, obviously, same thing, situation where you look to get a veteran presence. We've got some really good young guys and some guys that are coming back with experience, but again, wanted to bridge the gap for a year. Yeah, I think we're at least close to being done. We still, if there was a right situation out there, we possibly could, but, our roster is about as good as it possibly can be right now going into fall. Good question. Those two guys, Braxton Lewis is a starter, for us. Colin Olson starts for us. And, what I've always tried to tell guys is either, you're starting on 3 or 4 special teams for us, or you're a guy that's on the 1 or 2 deep and playing a lot of snaps for a football program. That's when I want to put you on scholarship. And, we've been able to do that even if you go back and research at Toledo to now, at our first 3 years here going into our 4th year at Iowa State. That's been a foundational tool for us, is to put those walk-on guys, preferred walk-on guys, or guys that come in our program, and now they've earned valuable minutes and put those guys on scholarship. But, you talk about a guy like Braxton, what he's meant to our football program, Colin Olson, what he did and what he's meant to the development of that offensive line in our program, and then obviously Amici is a guy that started on 3 or 4 special teams for us, a guy that gives us unbelievable depth at the defensive back position, can do a lot of things for us. So, those 3 guys, you have those guys as seniors in your program that have stayed the course and have paid their own way through the majority of their time. And that's pretty big, and hopefully it says a lot about where we're trying to trend to with our walk-on program at Iowa State. No, I really haven't. I think some uniformity to it, at some point probably, is coming. And, whatever we decide, where I think it legally takes it out of, our hands and trainers' hands, and there's one uniform way to somehow, some way, kind of conduct what's going on, probably good. But, I think everybody's trying to feel that out and what that looks like and feels like. But certainly I think something's changing. Yeah, we're a big study team in the off season, especially as we get in the months of May, June, July, where you start to have a little bit better feel of what your own team looks like. Now getting into number one, not only who's playing for these other teams, but then also who's coaching them, what's their background, what's their history. So, this is a big change this year. We'll put a lot of time and effort into those 4 new coaches, any new hires that have come into the league, and to try to do a really good job of being on the front end of that, rather than kind of being reactive to it once we get into the season. I do think special teams is an area that we spend a lot of time on because we've got so many guys back. We think that can be a factor for us rather than, so many new guys where we were a year ago. Obviously having the punter back, having, your place kicker back, having your long snapper back, by the way, maybe the best long snapper in the country. And, we've talked about guys that we think can go play in the National Football League or get drafted. The best one in the country gets drafted every year, and we feel like we've got the best one in the country, at Iowa State. And that's saying a lot about Steve. He's exceptional. And then you talk about having Tariq back at punt returning and our kick returner back. Those are huge factors from my end of it. So, we spent a lot of time this offseason before we even got to spring practices. Again, what kind of schemes, how do we put these guys that do have talent in the best position to be successful? And so, that's really what spring was about, was putting these guys that have shown the ability to do it. Now we need the consistency to do it at a really high end. We feel really confident about that. Obviously, Peyton Paddock's a young man in terms of the kickoff guy with losing Chris. That's probably the one job that, is we're going to have to find out. But Peyton, we felt really confident in a year ago. put him in the dream game. I thought he was exceptional, and so I think he's a guy that certainly got the ability to do it. Braden Narverson competing with both those guys, both the place kicking and the kickoff guy, to try to help ourselves out there. And then, again, the punting situation, we really think Corey's exceptional. It's getting the consistency of that punter. That's the most critical piece of it. So how do we find a scheme that matches his talent and ability to allow him to be the most consistent possible? So that was our special teams work. But again, those are areas for us that we do have guys that have the ability to get it done, and now it's our job to get them most consistent they can be and put a scheme around them to be successful. Well, and I think a little bit, and that's such a good question, a little bit of it for us is, who are your players? I wish, again, we're not at that place where we could just say, this is what we're doing all the time, because these are the players we're going to go out and recruit, and this is who we are. And, what we got to do is match our personnel to what we do offensively and defensively. And, defensively, we do have some new pieces. A guy like a Will McDonald, how do you find that scheme, and what does he do to allow you to be successful? And I do think the one thing we've done a good job of is matching our scheme to our personnel, and that's what we'll continue to evolve to do, and not try to be something we're not, or something just because this is what we've done the last couple of years, this is what we're trying to do or continue to do. So I think it continue to evolve and continue to try to put your players in position to be successful. Gage is a great story for us because just his process to get on our football team, to impact our football team. Gage was a young man that doing an unbelievable job for us in terms of working with our equipment staff and being involved in the day-to-day operation of our football team a year ago. And he saw this good-looking guy and said, man, you want to play football, why don't you give it a shot? And he did this offseason, and really just proud of his growth. I mean, for him to get back into football, get back into the weight room, get back on the practice field, that's a process. And I think you saw a different guy at the beginning of spring practice to a guy you saw at the end of spring practice. But his character, how he handles himself, and really how he motivates the others around him. That's why we're excited to have Gage a part of what we're doing.